this very well may be the worst flood Hunt has ever seen, because it would have started back up the South Fork. The devastation is unbelievable. How these kids survived in any of these camps along the river is nothing short of a miracle. But I grew up with this store. I've like I said, I've danced here, I've been here, sat by the fireplace in a rocking chair and drank a beer. The devastation, there are just no words, Taylor, that I can say that describe what I'm seeing. My ranch, it was completely underwater. The water got that high. Just unbelievable.
It is tough to wrap your head around the devastation and just the catastrophic nature of so much of it. Texas authorities, of course, are working around the clock to find survivors. One father taking the task of looking for his daughter into his own hands. You'll hear from him next. Yeah, absolutely, and and important to clarify, as you did, what was in the bill and what we don't know, what we do know, what we don't know moving forward. But also, I have to say, I noticed some of the messaging as well, also from state officials, really trying to emphasize what the state is doing, which was an interesting note in this moment, as all those agencies, of course, work together in such an important way. Betsy, really appreciate the reporting. Thank you. Also with us now, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Russell Honore, who of course led a special joint task force with FEMA in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. General, always good to talk to you and to get your insight in these moments. Right now, for these emergency crews on the ground, we have been told this is air, water, land, canine, human, everyone working together in this moment. Time is of the essence. Walk us through what would be happening in this moment, as they're also trying to get around all of the devastation so that they can do these search and rescue efforts.
Yeah, the big thing is the command and control to make sure all the terrain is being covered. And we're talking about miles and miles across counties, not just in Kirk County. That would be a challenge, along with the ability to communicate across those county lines and to get people to go into the areas where that water rushed through, Erica, because all those brush piles have to be searched. And from what I'm seeing on television, Texas ought to be committed for their response. Mm-hmm. But they're going to have a lot of questions to answer on why we had a flood watch the night before and why actions weren't taken to move people out or to provide siren warnings. And then who's responsible in those camps for the evacuation when we're looking at a flood watch before dark the night before.
Certainly important questions that will need to be answered, of course, moving into the future so that we don't see something like this again. As we see these boats out here, there was an emphasis on the efforts of the Coast Guard on hand helping, and Secretary No noting that there would be more coming in, looking for more air help as well. Just walk me through some of the challenges. I know early on in this disaster, there were some challenges with low cloud cover, which made it difficult, of course, to get in the air. There are the communications issues that you mentioned, the debris, but also just when you're coordinating a massive effort like this. What is the challenge, if any, when you are working with all of these different groups and bringing them together?
Well, if they're using the National Incident Command System, it should simplify it. And that is sponsored by FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. And it appears that they have good network inside that county where they've been doing the news conferences from, but how does that spread across the other counties? And are they using NIMS, and have they created a grid for the search? And my hat's off to those magnificent pilots and those on the ground who've gone in and rescued so many, over 800 people already. Mm-hmm. And they've done it in a very extreme situation, but the weather was the issue. But you know, Erica, Texas is going to have to stand up to this. The same thing happened in 1987. On July 16, along the same river in Kerr, and there was a flood. 10 people died. This exact same scenario. So Texas is going to have to fix this. People in Texas love to go out and camp. People have been going there for decades, but they're going to have to fix this. because this is a repeat. The same thing happened in 1907 along the Guadalupe River.
When we look at where things stand, the messaging, the communication is key, not just for the first responders here, the teams going in, but also, of course, for the community. There was some confusion in the last hour at this most recent press conference that we had. The local county judge said that this was basically shifting to a recovery effort, and then reporters pressed them on those comments because the move from rescue to recovery signifies, of course, that they don't believe that those who are missing will be found alive. We didn't get a clear answer on that, except there was some pushback from the governor basically saying, look, in this moment, we are still assuming that all those missing are alive. He basically said he wanted this to continue as a rescue operation. I mean, just walk us through why that messaging is so important, especially when we're talking about the difference between rescue and recovery in this moment.
Yeah, well, recovery, you're doing it in a total different manner. You doing primarily a lot of daytime searches, whereas in rescue, the governor wanted them to continue to do 24/7, take all risks possible to go in and find people alive. And that's a significant phase, and it's a message to the families when we say we go into recovery, that there's very little hope of finding anybody. So that was a sensitive moment when I watched that happen, and I must say it happens in just about every major disaster. And they need to work through that. But I heard the governor, he's a senior elected official, but my recommendation to the governor, you need to get 2,000 or 3,000 people walking those banks, not just 500. Task Force 1 is good. They can only do so many hours a day, and there's about 80 people in there. You got about 15,000 troops at Fort Hood. You got 21,000 troops in the Texas National Guard. You need to get some more boots on the ground and walk that ground, because and get more helicopters up. That would be my recommendation to the governor. They can do more, but they need to do it now. They got maybe another 24 hours, but they need to get more boots on the ground.
You talked about going through all these debris piles, which are just, I mean, overwhelming in many aspects when we think about them. There was also talk about, in terms of the helicopters, Secretary Noem, I believe, was referencing helicopters being brought in with thermal technology, right? So to search for those heat sources for bodies amongst that debris, that can also make a significant difference in these hours, and especially those overnight hours.
Absolutely, and we got aviation assets right there at Fort Hood. They pull Coast Guard up from the border mission, is what I suspect. This is a tough weekend. It's 4th of July weekend without warning, without having mobilization orders. But I think they need to mobilize some more Army helicopters to get in there to assist them. Now, Texas has some of the most capable search and rescue in the Air National Guard, those pay-pack helicopters. That's what they're designed for, search and rescue. And those helicopters have done a magnificent job. But you're going to need more of them to cycle them in, and you're going to need more boots on the ground, would be my recommendation, Erica. And we need to look again at the AT&T FirstNet communication system, which was bought during the last administration, Trump administration, and it's never worked our way through a storm. It failed us in Ida, and it failed us in every storm. We need to go back and look at that system on why the first responders had trouble talking. That's why we bought FirstNet.
It is when we look at all of those moments, when we look at what to your point, this is another example, I would say, of learning from a disaster, right? When a communication tool isn't working. There have been changes over the years. Certainly since Katrina, there has been learning from that. Can you just walk us through some of what has changed in terms of these search and rescue efforts that does, in fact, allow some of these teams to maybe get to people a little bit quicker?
Well, one of the things we developed doing on the fly in Katrina was a set of search grids. So we could quickly refer the pilots to them and assign people to each grid, as opposed to going along geographical boundaries that's normally associated with long roads and or river streams. You've got to check that entire area of operation, and it goes beyond county lines. So hopefully the state is using that search grid capability, and it also has a capability to transfer a civilian address to address that a pilot can transfer in his helicopter to lat long on his helicopter. So there were a lot of lessons learned from there, and all that's embedded inside of Northern Command, and hopefully they're assisted the state. But the Texas National Guard is well trained and well equipped. They've got some of the best equipment, to include Reaper drones They have all sorts of assets. They're functioning, they're mobilizing and getting it in the woods to go look for those girls.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, we did hear mention of a grid system, people coming back in, checking on that grid at this most recent press conference. Lieutenant General Russell Honore, always appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you.
My hat's off to the first responders and to the volunteers. The volunteers are going to make a big difference on the ground there in Texas.
They certainly play an important role as well. Thank you again. Meantime, we are following in Texas, of course, not only the search and rescue efforts, but there's also an urgent flooding emergency. There are concerns about, as we just heard from one of our reporters on the ground, concerns about some more rain in the forecast as we continue to update you on these search and recovery efforts, search and rescue efforts at this hour. Stay with us. A quick break here. We'll update you with the latest on the other side. Continuing to following the breaking news now out of central Texas, where at least 32 people have died in flash flooding, 14 of them children. More than 20 girls remain unaccounted for at Camp Mystic in Kerr County, Texas. That area, it's Hunt, Texas, in that area where the Guadalupe River rose more than 20 feet in less than 2 hours yesterday. Meteorologist Chris Warren is with us now. So Chris, I was checking in with our colleague Maribel Gonzalez just a short time ago. She talked about concerns for rain later tonight. What are the threats in that area right now?
More rain is on the way. A relative break this evening, but more rain later on tonight and again tomorrow. I want to show you, Erica, how we got here and how this happened. The catastrophic flooding that we saw that is absolutely heartbreaking that we've been seeing all day. This is the radar estimated rainfall. So sometimes you'll see numbers. There was 7 inches here, a foot of rain there, but the radar estimated rainfall shows us the whole area. And we're looking at the whole area is important because we talk about drainage basins. So any water that falls in a given area ends up in the same river. In this case, the Guadalupe River. And all of this rain here, several counties here contributing anywhere from, in yellow, 2 to 4, orange, 4 to 6, 6 to 10 inches in the red. And then you have these outlier amounts, more than a foot of rain estimated by radar, and how it played out, creating what was called by the National Weather Service a flood wave. Right, so the water going up so fast, as you mentioned here, Friday morning at 2 o'clock. So overnight Thursday into Friday morning, 2 in the morning, less than a foot. That was what the stream was, less than a foot, very low. And then a couple hours later, up to essentially 2 stories. That happening in a couple of hours. And you can see here on the gauge, this is all week long, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, below a foot of water flowing through the Guadalupe River at Kerrville, and then shoot straight up. There's little dots in here that make it look like a continuous line, and then from there to there is just one dot to the other. So an absolute mind-blowing event here with the flooding. And the terrain has a lot to do with it, the water being funneled down through the channels and into the streams. But the amount of rain, of course, is huge, how fast that rain falls, and the intensity. And this all set up with, by Friday morning, rain had been falling up here, which is flowing down through the drainage basin, getting into the streams that feed into the Guadalupe River. And then as the day went along, now this is 10 o'clock in the morning, it had been raining all night. Now going into the morning hours, you're getting that extra push, helping to bring even more water and creating that catastrophic scene. So a mind-blowing, again, event here that unfolded with rain happening again and picking up today, this morning, with new flood warnings, including flash flood emergencies as well. Here's the high-resolution future radar. This shows us the rain picking up again even as early as tomorrow morning, mid-morning. Heavy rain and showers for the search areas here continue right into around 6 o'clock or so, and then there will be another break. But unfortunately, Erica, it does look like the showers and at times the thunderstorms could be heavy again tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, Chris, really appreciate it. Thank you. As we continue to follow what is happening on the ground, we're also starting to get a better look at some of the destruction, some of what was left behind by this catastrophic flooding. Taylor Wartnabe from our CNN affiliate KABB has a closer look at that destruction in Hunt, Texas, where the flooding actually washed away the post office. Take a look.
I want to walk you through, they didn't want to be on camera, but they walked me through this area and what it did look like. So they said that this was once all boarded up. This was all brick and now completely opened up. That just to show how fierce that storm was and how it powered through. I want you to walk with me down here closer so we can get a closer look inside the actual building. You could just see just the debris that is completely clinging on to the building. But if you take a closer look here inside, you could just see it is just completely packed in there, just all the debris that just swept right into the Hunt store here in Hunt. This was a staple, they were telling me. I did speak to the cashier who worked here for many years, and so he saw a lot of residents come into the area. I also want to mention that closer down here, again, there's lots of debris, branches down power lines. What I thought was just devastating, what they told me, was right over here is where the post office once was, if you believe it. I was completely shocked. He said, this is the brick from the post office. And as you can see, it's completely gone at this, it's no longer here. But what we did find was a Cassandra, what's her name tag, which was somewhere further where we first started. It's just, everything is scattered here. It's just devastating, just the amount of destruction this floodwater caused here in Hunt. So we're still speaking with residents here, and I did ask the cashier here about like rebuilding. You know, where do you go from here? And he says, you know, you just completely take this, you just rebuild from the start, bottom up.
Yeah, and it is remarkable, that damage so widespread. We're going to continue to follow those developments. We're also hearing now more from terrified Texas residents, people who were forced to flee in the middle of the night to get away from that deadly flooding. We'll have more of their stories just ahead. Tonight, 32 people are dead in Texas following that flash flooding hitting areas near San Antonio. At least 27 people remain missing. The destruction, it is remarkably widespread. Patty Santos is a reporter with CNN affiliate KSAT and has a closer look now at some of that destruction along the Guadalupe River.
Here is where we are right now. This is the Guadalupe River, and we're standing here to show you that the road here is still closed. Right on the other side, there used to be lodges. They are now gone. But also, take a look at these trees. All of this area was covered in trees. Take a look at how high the trees are. We could see some of that debris all the way up to those trees, and I've gotten a chance to talk to some of the people that live here that tell me this entire landscape looks very different than what it did just a few days ago. We have seen a lot of people walking this area here by foot, and also some search and rescue crews with other, just kind of taking a look here to see what they're seeing. We're seeing a lot of crews making their way up north with boats, with canines, with other equipment as the search continues and as the cleanup continues just north of here in at that camp, at Mystic Camp. And so this is the scene that we're seeing right now. It is just devastation, catastrophic. Those are the words that are being used by people who live here, who used to see this river very differently, and what they're seeing it now.
Part of the reason a number of folks are seeing it so differently is just how quickly things happen. In Hunt, Texas, there was more than 6.5 inches of rainfall in just 3 hours on Friday. One local resident whose family has lived in the region for more than 100 years said he has never seen anything like this.
This very well may be the worst flood Hunt has ever seen, because it would have started back up the South Fork. The devastation is unbelievable. How these kids survived in any of these camps along the river is nothing short of a miracle. But I grew up with this store. I've like I said, I've danced here, I've been here, sat by the fireplace in a rocking chair and drank a beer. The devastation, there are just no words, Taylor, that I can say that describe what I'm seeing. My ranch, it was completely underwater. The water got that high. Just unbelievable.
It is tough to wrap your head around the devastation and just the catastrophic nature of so much of it. Texas authorities, of course, are working around the clock to find survivors. One father taking the task of looking for his daughter into his own hands. You'll hear from him next.